So let's say you go to your latest jam session with your friends or in a club, and someone calls a tune in a key that you're not used to playing in. While you start your solo, you pick your minor pentatonic shape, you're playing away, you're sounding pretty good. But then after a couple bars, you play a wrong note. You panic a little, and then, there's another wrong note. And you look down at the fretboard, and you look at it and you think, why does this all of a sudden look like a map to a foreign country I've never been in? And then, you're real done for. I'm going to show you how that will never happen again. With these strategies that I teach to all my students, every time you look down at the fretboard, you'll know exactly where you are, and you'll never get lost again. Easy shape, up to extension shape. Now, a lot of students ask me, should I just memorize the entire fretboard? And yes, one day you should, but actually that's not necessarily the information that I'm using to prevent myself from getting lost on the fretboard. The main information I'm using are just the notes on the low E and the A string. I use those notes as landmarks when I'm looking for my pentatonic shapes, when I'm playing in my pentatonic shapes, so that I will never get lost. As long as I keep in my mind wherever the significant roots or those landmarks are on either of those two strings, I know the shapes, every shape from there. So if you've been playing guitar for a little while, I'm sure you've encountered what I call the easy shape of minor pentatonic. If we're in A minor pentatonic, the root is going to be A at the 5th fret of your E string, right? And then we would just have easy shape. Now you're probably not getting lost in easy shape because you know that the root of that shape is there. You probably know that because it's probably the first one you ever learned. But what if you start moving around the fretboard? If you start moving around the fretboard, you still never want to lose sight of that A. So for example, what if I slide up into the extension shape? The extension shape is this little bit up here. I'm still not going to lose my place because I know I keep in my mind this A down here. Or what if I'm in a different key, right? Let's say I'm in C minor pentatonic. There's my C on the root E. I have my easy shape. And my extension shape. I'm just always visualizing that C root and never want to lose track of that C root in between those dots. And I can see from there the easy shape and the extension shape above that. Let's go back to A minor pentatonic for a second and let's move below our easy shape. If we move below our easy shape, we are in what I call the symmetrical shape. Sometimes people call this shape 5. Whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. It looks like this. And some people will call this the pentatonic equator because when you look here across the 5th fret, you get, in those shapes, you get 5th, 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 all the way across. And again, never lose sight of your root. And in this case, in these shapes, you're never going to lose sight of your pentatonic equator. And when we're in A, we know that's 5th fret. So I have symmetrical shape. Easy shape. And there's my root. Extension shape. I might be way up here, but I know it in relation to the A, and that's still held in my mind, right? I can even go down to shape 5, but I know there's my root. Let's do that in C. Everything moves up. Keep in mind now, the A, or the C, sorry, is 8th fret now. Here's symmetrical, shape 5. There's my equator in C, right? I'm visualizing that's the 8th fret. And I keep in mind that in C, I'm not on the dots, right? My root and my equator is not on the dot. There's something funny about those dots, and it always wants to draw our fingers towards the dots. So when we're playing in the key of C, we keep in mind that that equator is between those dots. If you have spent the time to memorize the notes on the low E really well, you will not lose sight of that C. If you find that you are losing sight of that C, that means you need to spend more time getting to know what that guy looks like. And this sounds funny, but I know all these notes based on the way they look. It's not that different than if you meet someone for the first time. You sort of take a mental picture of their face. You know, they look like this person has blue eyes and he's got kind of curly, bushy hair. Well, C has a face as well, right? His face looks like this. He's in between the dots. He's quite a ways up there. He's right next to B, right? Because there's nobody in the middle there. And he's getting close to the 12th fret, but he's in between the dots. That's what his face looks like. And that's why I will never forget what C looks like there, or any of these notes on the whole fretboard. Now, before we take the next step, I'm just going to remind you that I put all the tabs and exercises on my website, which you can download. The website is www.bluemars.com, but the specific link is down below. Now, one of the things that I said early on in this video is that we really need to know the notes on both the low E and the A string, and that's where we're going to get our landmarks from, also from the A string. Why? Because we don't always want to be stuck playing around this easy shape, as good as it is, right? So many classic rock solos and blues solos are based on the easy shape. But in certain keys, the easy shape might get a little too high pitched, or just higher pitched than we might want for that particular song. So let's say we're going to play now in the key of E, but we want to be sort of in the middle of the fretboard because we just like that range for that particular song. That means we need to know immediately where E is on the A string, and now we're going to use an A string landmark. 7th fret of the A string is E, right? And that means that I have a different set of pentatonic shapes that I'm going to memorize. If you don't know these shapes yet, that's okay, don't panic. You can memorize them in time. You can memorize them after this video, or just take each new shape one by one, get used to each shape, rather than trying to memorize them all at once, which can be a little overwhelming and often means that it doesn't really sink in, right? But here's that shape. I call this one the funny B string shape. Why? Because we have to, when we get to the B string in this shape, we have to pitch it up 1 fret. So it goes like this. And now we remember that the landmark is on the A string, and we are not going to lose sight of that, even if I'm playing up here. I'm always, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about that E landmark. And now we know that when the root is on the A string and my first finger is on the A string, it's funny B string shape. Remember that. That's a bit of a mouthful. But if you can internalize that concept that when the root is on the A string and your first finger is starting that shape, it's funny B string shape. Also, it helps us to remember where the root is, because we want to know where the roots are when we're improvising so that we're not meandering so much. We want to know where the roots are, and maybe one day where more of the roots are, and maybe one day where the thirds are and the fifths are, but one thing at a time. Get to know where those roots are. Now, let's go below, right? When we had the easy shape, we had the equator. We don't have the straight line equator with these ones, but it doesn't matter. It's not that much harder to memorize, whatever. We're going to think of this one. This is still going to be my landmark, but now my landmark, I'm going to put my third finger on the landmark. So I'm still starting on the exact same note, but because I'm starting below it, in this system, the shape is going to be different. The shape is... So notice that this system shares the same root in the same place. It's just a matter of whether or not we start with our first finger on it and then play funny B string shape, or start with our third finger on it and play this shape. Shape 3, I think most people call that. And really the same thing happened when we were in our easy shape. When we're in our easy shape, we started with our first finger on the landmark, or we started with our third finger on the landmark. You could think of these as two entirely different systems, depending on where we want to be on the fretboard. Either it's landmark on the E string, or it's landmark on the A string. So let's do landmark on the E string in the key of E. Well, I have to find E on the 12th fret. That's E, of course it is, that's an E string. And I can play easy shape from there. And then I'm going to use that same landmark, but I'm going to put my third finger on it. And that's where we can see that pentatonic equator. We keep in mind these two pentatonic shapes, and we keep in mind that they are both connected to that landmark. Now let's change to the other system. The other system is landmark root on the A string. We're staying in E, so remember, E is 7th fret of the A string. You know that because you've studied these two strings really well, right? First finger on that E, and we have funny B string shape. And then I'm going to use the same landmark, but I'm going to put third finger on that landmark, and then I get what people usually call shape 3. And we remember that the root is not at the bottom of this shape. These are just extra notes. But that the root is there, A string, 7th fret, because that's the landmark for these two shapes. But we can run from one to the other. And this is a very common, what I call a run, because it means we're going to slide through multiple shapes. And this run is in many, many, many songs. So we're going to memorize it, and we're going to keep in mind our landmark root. But we're in A now, and we're going to run 3, 5, 3, 5 slide. That puts me into my A minor pentatonic easy shape. And then we're going to go 5, 7, 5, 7 slide. That puts me into my A minor pentatonic extension shape. We'll finish it off with 8, 10, 8, 10. Let's descend. Remembering that landmark root is there on the 5th fret. Now we've got a nice run. We've got a lot of space that we can travel. But we want to also be able to do that kind of travel if we're in the other system. The other system meaning landmark root on the A string. So let's change keys. Let's change back to the key of E. Now, you might be thinking, oh, why does he keep changing keys? This is making it difficult. But that's the point, is that we want to be able to play minor pentatonic, major pentatonic as well, in every key, because unfortunately, not every song is in the key of A. So here we go, E minor pentatonic. We know because we've studied the E and the A strings, and we know that the E root is here at the 7th fret. And we have memorized that when we have landmark on A string, we have funny B string shape. And if we put third finger on that same landmark, we have shape 3. And those two are connected by that root, which means that we can run from one to the other. And And usually I'll do the run like this. I'll go 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7. I might as well use those 6 notes of that shape because it's so easy to play. 3 strings, same shape in a row. Love it. And then I'm going to slide, right? And then I'm going to play 7, 9. And then I'm just going to play right through this to the end, the top of that shape. So we have. And now I want one more note, because if I just go one more note, I have the root again. So all I have to do to complete the whole run is just move up 2 frets, 1 whole step. Nice. So now I have a run that travels all the way from A at the 5th fret all the way to E at the 12th fret. And your final step, your final challenge here is that we can connect this whole system with the other whole system based on the E string root. Because watch what happens when we get to the top of this run. Where am I? Well, I'm on the root here, which means that this same fret, right, bottom string, that's my landmark. That's my landmark for the other whole system. So I'm here. I'm visualizing, because we're always visualizing where these landmarks are on the E and A strings, even if we're not playing them. And I see that's my landmark. So therefore, I could move up into easy shape. Or I could have just stayed there with my 3rd finger on that E and descend a symmetrical shape. So let's do the whole run and then descend symmetrical shape. Symmetrical. Ending on E, because we know that's the landmark for E, just as that was the landmark for E on the A string. Let's do one more. I'm going to do the same run, but instead of descending symmetrical shape, I'm going to go up to easy shape. It's actually going to be a little easier, so why not? There we go. Now we have traveled all the way from this A at the 5th fret all the way up to this G at the 15th fret. So we have a lot of ability to travel. I could have traveled even further, because once I'm in this other system, I also know that I have my extension shape up there. Easy shape. Up to extension shape. Wow. So if you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe. It will help me out a lot. And please comment below. Let me know if you find this useful, or if you've got any other ideas that you have found useful for finding your way around the fretboard and never getting lost. My name is Blue Morris, and I teach guitar lessons here in Vancouver, Canada. I'll see you next week.